Welcome back to the IDP Plus podcast. I'm Johnny. You can find me on Twitter at JohnnyFreakinF1. On this episode, I'm going to break down my Tier 2 defensive back rankings for your upcoming IDP Redraft 2025 season. That's right, this is Tier 2, 13 through 24 of my defensive back rankings. If you missed my top 12, no worries. Go to IDP Plus on YouTube, check out that video, and become a subscriber so you don't miss upcoming videos if you are not already. Getting right into it, I'm going to start to share my screen so you can see my list, my stats here that I like looking at when looking at defensive backs. We're going to start it off top of Tier 2, number 13 here, looking at Tyler Nubin. Tyler Nubin is somebody who I'm very high on this year. I've seen him go higher so far in rankings, and I do think that once we get through the training camp and the preseason here, he could ascend even in my own rankings. But I am bullish on him, no doubt. He's 26 years old, had a pretty solid rookie year. I mean, he had glimpses there, didn't put all the pieces together. What you can see here in 2024 last season, he did combine for 98 tackles, 57 were solos, and 41 of those were assists. So a nice blend there. He was getting in the mix. Also was the first person getting to the ball carrier, pass catcher often. So Tyler Nubin, I'll continue my rant with him of why I'm hyping him up. In 13 games that he's played, he's averaged, to get to that 98 tackles, he's had an average of 7.5 tackles per game, which is pretty tremendous when talking about defensive backs. We bank on that. 7.5 is a juicy number there. You can see he had 4 tackles, no sacks, no interceptions, maybe something to work on this upcoming 2025 season, but did have a forced fumble and a pass defense. And when you look at the last category I have, this is brought to you by our IDPplus.com website, weekly top 25 finishes. This is in balance scoring, even though I tend to revert to at least mindset of tackle heavy premium. But in balance scoring, he was in the top 25, 7 out of those 13 games. So pretty immaculate there. Over half the time, he was a top 25 defensive back weekly for us, and I expect him to build on those numbers. Looking at Tyler Nubin a little bit more extensively, he played 96% of snaps weeks 1 through 13. The first 3 weeks of those were not very productive. Weeks 1 through 3, he had only 13 combined tackles. But when you look at the rest, week 4 through 13, I know it's not the rest of the season, but it is the rest of my talking point here. Weeks 4 through 13, those 10 games, he combined for an 85 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, fumble forced, and a pass defense. So really, even though we're looking at a season average of 7.5 tackles per game, during that 10-game heater, he had 85 tackles. He was averaging 8.5 tackles per game. That's more like Buda Baker numbers. That'll get you in the top 12. So Tyler Nubin, again, somebody who we saw glimpses of, I believe 3 straight double-digit games, but ended up fading towards the end due to injury nonetheless. But he's had off-season surgery, I believe, on his ankle. Should be healthy rolling into training camp. So let's see. When I come back and hit these rankings again, Tyler Nubin might be a guy who I move up. Just a couple other additional pieces of information here. Jevon Holland signs with the Giants to be his partner in that defensive backfield. Jevon Holland, I'm happy about this signing for Nubin. It couldn't have been a better partner. Jevon Holland, only 62 tackles in 15 games last year. Started off hot in his career, and it is a fine safety, Jevon Holland, but at the same time, not somebody who's going to take a lot of tackles away from Tyler Nubin. So this is his chance to eat. He was on pace. If we kept with that 7.5 tackle mark that he averaged throughout the year, he would be on pace for 128 tackles, and that's pretty immaculate. That's no way around it. DB1 numbers, perhaps even in the top 3, top 5. So that's the kind of pace ascension I see Tyler Nubin on. I personally believe if it's not Bobby Okereke leading the Giants in tackles, it's going to be Tyler Nubin here coming from the safety position. Again, he had that offseason ankle surgery. He should be good to go once the season rolls around. And let's see if I have him higher in my rankings come preseason time. Moving on to number 14, I have Quentin Lake. Quentin Lake's only 24 years old. Big breakout year last year. Played in 17 games, but I believe that last game he did not play a full complement of snaps. They were winning. They were headed to the playoffs, so they only played him, I think, under 10% or 18. It was 18% of snaps in that last game. So we can kind of call this 16 games, but let's just say it's 17. He averaged 6.5 tackles, which is solid. Again, a guy who kind of came and went. Quentin Lake, especially towards the beginning to the middle of the season, was on a torrid pace. Didn't sustain it, but still ended up for a solid 111 tackles. 73 of those, by the way, were solos. If you're getting 2 points a solo tackle, that's a lot of points. You probably know Quentin Lake well. He was maybe on your team last year. 4 games out of the 17 full season he played were double-digit tackle games. Pretty impressive there. Again, a couple of them came in the beginning of the season when he was on that heater. He was riding hot from the beginning. Did kind of fade, but I'm backing Quentin Lake here. I think this is somebody who is a very underrated player in the NFL. Versatile guy. You can see here, only had 1 tackle for loss, but did have 2 sacks, 5 passes defensed. No forced fumbles, no interceptions. I was a little bit surprised to see that looking back in the stat sheet here, but did have 6 out of 17 games played. Over a third of his weekly fantasy finishes were in the top 25, so very healthy there for Quentin Lake. I think this is a player who's due for a contract extension for the Rams. I'm bullish on him, and he could be somebody who moves up next year's rankings because he has a killer year in 2025. He can kind of fade. Maybe Cam Kitchens, Cam Curl, they kind of hurt his luster there. So that's why I have him at 14 here. Production was top 12 last season, but that doesn't always make top 12 this season. So Quentin Lake, I'm pretty comfortable with him at 14. And just a couple additionals on him. He did not miss a snap until week 17, until they benched their players going into the playoffs. Even at nickelback, he was too valuable to discount. I think in IDP leagues, sometimes we look at those nickelbacks, cornerbacks, and we kind of, don't believe the proof is in the pudding. But for him, it was. We expected a breakout. A lot of hype was coming out about Quentin Lake, and boy, he did not disappoint. We got that big breakout. Maybe a little bit of a red flag. Looking at the first 10 games, he had 80 of those tackles with 2 sacks. So boom. I mean, what in the last 7 games or 6 games, we should say, he only had 41 tackles, no sacks, because those came in the first half of the season, we should say. But yeah, somebody who definitely started hot and faded. But again, maybe this is his first taste of a full-time role. He kind of got gassed out. Definitely a versatile player, so we can understand it. We can have sympathy for him. But I'm willing to throw that away and at least definitely roster Quentin Lake. We can get him as a defensive back too. I think that's a pretty good stance there to have on him. The last 6 games, how I mentioned he faded, last 6 games of the season, only 31 tackles and 4 pass defense. That is an average right over 5 tackles per game, so that's not going to do it. But I think we're going to see the former Quentin Lake here versus the latter. And again, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe Cam Kitchens, I do believe in him. I think he's more of a big play scoring type of guy. I'm really not rocking with him for tackles, but maybe him and even Cam Curl, show life in IDP world for us. So a couple of different factors here, but one thing is for sure that Quentin Lake definitely cemented a big role, an important role for the Rams. So he's ranking in here at 14. Moving on to my next guy at 15, Brandon Jones, somebody who you could say even had a better year than Quentin Lake. And Brandon Jones is 27 years old. It took him a couple years. I believe this is his 4th year. Took him a few years to get going. A lot of people in IDP did back his potential. I personally did not see it coming, but after week 1, week 2, I was on it in most of my IDP leagues. He finished playing 16 games. He did miss a game, but even makes the stats look better, right? Look, 79 solo tackles, 36 assists for a combined 115. Anytime your safety's getting, I'd say, over 110 tackles, they're very valuable in IDP. I had that average of 7.2 tackles per game. A quarter of his games played were double-digit tackle games, which is pretty impressive, especially once we get lower in the rankings here. Buda Baker, Nick Cross, those guys did it 6-7 times, but we're talking about DB2s here, and Brandon Jones still did it a quarter of his games. So very impressive there to me. Had 2 tackles for loss, no sacks. You can see a highlight in green here. 3 interceptions, which is something to write home about. He wasn't just getting the tackles. He's a playmaker as well, and he also had a forced fumble and an incredible 10 pass defense. So not only we'll put some sugar on top here. When we talk about weekly top 25 finishes and balanced scoring, he did it just under half the games. Very impressive. 8 out of the 17 games, he was a top 25 safety. I'm sure if you play in tackle heavy leagues like me, the numbers were even higher than that. So Brandon Jones, one thing that tricks me up here is last season we had Alex Singleton hurt basically the whole year. We did not have Dre Greenlaw as his counterpart. Cody Barton kind of let us down. He was a slower guy. Maybe there was more tackles for Brandon Jones. That's just kind of my gut feeling. I don't really have stats to back that up. But at the same time, last season, I was high on PJ Locke. I was higher on PJ Locke than Brandon Jones. I think a lot of us were due to that end of the season PJ Locke had. Unfortunately, was not able to sustain that. Is a free safety, so it does make a little bit of sense. Brandon Jones being the strong safety here, he was able to really take advantage of PJ Locke's inability to complete the tackle. Wasn't a lot of opportunities for PJ Locke, probably because Brandon Jones was such a dog back there. This year they bring in Hufanga. I'd like to think that Hufanga is a lot better than PJ Locke, not only in playmaking ability, but also as far as tackling too. Hufanga is not going to have 120 tackles. I would believe that Brandon Jones, playing the strong safety role, is going to lead the safety room in tackles, but that doesn't mean he's going to repeat what he did last year. So I can get it. If you have him in your top 10, top 8, I understand it. The production says that, but sometimes you don't always have to look in the rearview mirror. Sometimes you got to look forward and make a gut call, and that's where I'm seeing with Brandon Jones. It took him 4 years to get going. Maybe the opportunity wasn't exactly there, but he was a starter in Miami, and these numbers were, don't get me wrong, he had some 8-10 tackle games, but those were far and few between. So everything clicked right this year for Brandon Jones. Maybe he peaked. Maybe these additions of Hufanga, Greenlaw, Singleton hurt him, although he was a third-round pick, so the potential's there. He had too good of a season to ignore, bottom line, so I can't discount him too much, but 15, when we got guys like Nubin, Lake right in front of him, I think that's a good spot for him. So bottom line is, though, overall, the team has a great defense. Denver Broncos even have a better offense. So when your offense is better, you score more points. And, if you're not letting up a lot of points, teams got to throw the ball against you. So Brandon Jones, I think, is still a solid DB2, definitely has DB1 upside. I just want to see it first before I keep him in my top 12. Moving on to 16, I want to talk to you about Jeremy Chinn. Jeremy Chinn was absolutely a walking bomb last year. He's still only 27 years old. 17 games played. He played a full slate, averaged 6.9 tackles per game, even had 2 more tackles than Jones with 117. You can see a nice blend there too, 73 solos, 44 assists. 5 out of 17 games, more than a third, were double-digit tackle games. Of course, Jeremy Chinn started off slow, but he went bonkers there towards the middle of the season. He did compile 7 tackles for loss. Did have a pretty high mark for a safety here, 2 sacks, which we're not surprised. This is Jeremy Chinn. This is a very versatile chess piece. We saw that in his rookie year before injuries in Carolina, and it's nice to see that it translated. I'm gonna miss him with Dan Quinn. I do think that was a part of this production, but nonetheless, very productive. Had an interception as well, forced fumble, 5 passes defense, and going back to that weekly top 25 finishes, he did it 5 times. So pretty standard here in this group. Not the most weekly top 25 finishes, but certainly not the least. Jeremy Chinn, I don't think he gets any better, to be honest with you, in Vegas. I think that this was the right time, right place in Washington, but I do still think that Jeremy Chinn should have an ability to probably garner 105, 110, maybe 115 tackles. I'd be surprised if he had better production. But then again, Pete Carroll's taken over in Las Vegas. Not too strong of linebackers there, so maybe he gets a couple additional opportunities, but I don't think they're just going to use him the same way, rushing the passer as much, things like that. I don't think the sacks, the splash plays will be there as much, but if we can get 115 tackles out of Jeremy Chinn, we're going to be pretty happy. He tied his rookie season, his career high, his rookie season was 117 tackles. You can see he tied that. So that was happy to see. It was good to see him get healthy. He had 10 plus tackle games. Wasn't cheap. He did it, five times, and those 5 times were a combined 62. So once again, 10 or more tackles, 5 games. And it wasn't just like, hey, 5 games, 50. He got the average of 10. He blew that out of the water. He had more than an average of 12 tackles in those games. So very impressive. It wasn't cheap, like I said. But 7 games were under 5 tackles, so there was a little bit of inconsistency there, especially early on in the season. A lot of people, I know in my leagues, I wasn't even rostering him in in shallower IDP leagues. He just didn't make good on his opportunity at first. But boy, in that middle of the season, he really had some spike games. Again, I'm a little worried about him losing Dan Quinn. I think that's one thing to consider that's, maybe overlooked, at least, at this point. But I do think that he'll have a solid year, 110, 115 tackles. I do think also Jermaine Pratt, the signing for the Raiders, maybe hurt him a little bit as well. But overall, I'm a big fan of Jeremy Chinn. I think he's deserving maybe even of a higher spot on this list, but I think 16 fits him nice on the chance that it does kind of go south. Moving on to Josh Metellus at number 17. Josh Metellus had a down year, as compared to his 2023 season. 2023, 116 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, 7 tackles for loss. Played 94% of snaps. We got burned this year, ladies and gentlemen. We got burned in 2024 by Josh Metellus. I'm not going to say he absolutely was, killed your team. He still ended up with 103 tackles overall, still averaged over 6 tackles a game, was rosterable, but certainly was probably somebody you dropped early in the season. I believe those first 4 or 5 games, he was averaging like 4 or 5 tackles, if that. So Josh Metellus was a slow starter there. Ended up getting it going towards the end of the season. Still had some splash plays, 2 tackles for loss, 2 interceptions, a forced fumble, and 5 pass defense. So that's nice to see. We still know that ability is in there for him. He's still only 27 years old. Now they lose Cam Bynum. Cam Bynum is now with the Colts, and to me, this is an exciting time for Josh Metellus because we never got to really see him be the star there. He was always in this kind of like Joker role, doing all these different assignments and rushing the passer, playing cornerback. Just let him do one kind of thing here. Let him be a strong safety. Let Harrison Smith. They have good chemistry, by the way. Let Harrison Smith range the backfield, and I think Josh Metellus is going to have a nice bounce back season. You can't look in the rearview mirror and buy the pudding, but looking ahead, I do think that there's better days ahead for Metellus. I would expect him to get back to that 115, 120 tackle kind of season, and that would put him definitely inside the top 12. So this is a guy who I wouldn't really consider him much volatile anymore because the snaps, this last season, he only played 87% of snaps. And actually the tackles per game were about the same ratio, even from last year to this year, even though he ended up with a little bit less tackles. The ratios were pretty much similar. So Josh Metellus, I think if, in 2023, he was at 94%. 2024, he was 87%. Let me see him at 95 and above. If this guy's a full-time starter, I believe it's definitely going to be over 95%, and you're going to see those stats translate. So Josh Metellus, excited about him, excited about Cam Bynum not being there. As you can see, Bynum didn't even make my list. He's going to have to prove it in Indy. And one more thing about Josh Metellus, I mentioned the horrible start, 26 tackles in his first 5 games, so just over 5 tackles a game. That's not going to be on my team, I'll tell you that much. But he ended hot. He had 49 tackles over his last 7 games, a nice average of 7. So if he can sustain 7 tackles the whole year, that's 100, let's see, 70 plus 49, that's 100 and 119 tackles. Yeah, 119 tackles. The math. And so, I definitely think Josh Metellus is somebody you want to buy in, especially if he's the 17th defensive back off the board. You've got yourself a nice value there. Moving on to 18, somebody who hasn't been really proven, somebody who's burned us, left a bad taste in our mouth, and that's Jordan Battle. Jordan Battle, you can look here, and the stats will tell you he played 17 games, but really that's kind of a misconception. He did not average 3.4 tackles per game. Really, when you look at it, Battle didn't play over 25% of snaps until week 9. So really, we're throwing out a lot of those games. But in week 9, he started playing pretty much a full-time role. We'll say full-time role. It was 75% of snaps or more in those 5 games. So for those 5 games, he had 32 tackles. That's an average of 6.4 tackles per game. He also had an interception, tackle for loss, and pass defense in those 5 games. So definitely would have had a nice season, would have had eclipsed over 100 tackles. He still had a double-digit tackle game, even in a season where he was vying for playing time. I do believe that was one of the games where he played at least close to 100%. So hopefully that's what we get a taste of. Hey, he's listed as the starter finally in 2025. And right, like I said before, the 6.4 tackles, if he can do that day in and day out and play a full 17 games, he's going to give us that the perfect average would be 110, but I think there's more meat on the bone here. Not huge amount of tackles more, maybe 115, something 120. Don't think he's going to out tackle Nick Cross, those guys, but at the same time, Jordan Battle is a high pedigree player, was a high draft pick. I do think that he'll be able to make more of a splash than just 1 tackle for loss, 1 interception, 3 pass defense when he gets a full-time role, and that's what he's going to have this season. So I'm excited for Jordan Battle. Definitely a guy who you're going to be able to get later because he hasn't really put the pieces together yet, but capitalize on that opportunity. Moving on, number 19, Deshon Elliott for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He had a career year last year, at least as far as tackles go, with 108 in 2024, and that was only 15 games played. So that was very impressive to see. Deshon Elliott is somebody who it was a complete afterthought. He kind of faded. Was a journeyman, but I myself I can take credit for this. I kind of said he would be rosterable at some point, and sure enough, within a few weeks of the season, he was. Still had a tremendous year when we look at outside of tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles, 6 pass defense, and an interception. And this is a guy who is a playmaker. I'm not going to say he's going to. I think he only has a sack or sack and a half in his career. So we're going to count as a big fat 0 and be content with that. If he gets a sack, I'll have the party at my house. But again, this is somebody we're here for the tackles, and I just love it. I loved it. I'll say the same thing as I did last year. I'm not surprised that he was good this past year. He had 96 tackles in 2022 with Detroit. I'm sure a lot of you listeners had him on your fantasy teams like I did that year, and that was only in 14 games. So 96 tackles in 14 games. Only a couple years ago, was not long ago. He was playing opposite of Minkah Fitzpatrick, which Minkah Fitzpatrick doesn't even make my list here. Big hit on him is tackles, and that's why I like it for Deshon Elliott. Let Minkah Fitzpatrick roam that free safety position, roam the backfield, and let Deshon Elliott eat up those box snaps and kind of help in the run game as well, and that's what he was able to do. Also, big news, he got signed literally today to a 3-year extension for $15.5 million. So his job's secure. The Steelers, I think, did it right. They want to bring these 2 vets back, have some continuity there. Don't want to ragtag it. Don't want to go back to a player like Damontae Kazee. So I think this is a nice, puts us at ease for Deshon Elliott. We know he's going to be there. He's definitely a solid defensive back too, with DB1 upside, I think, and a little bit of consistency problems there, but modeled with injury too. So I'm not going to say Deshon Elliott's going to have 130 tackles. I don't think that's the case, but somewhere looking like this 105, 115, somewhere around there, I think that's what we expect from Deshon Elliott. So if he can do that again, he'll definitely pay off as a value pick for you if you can get him at 19. Moving on, 20, Xavier McKinney. Big wild card here, still only 25 years old. Been sliding in the rankings. I'm sure everyone's rankings, not only mine. 2023, huge year, 116 tackles, 3 interceptions, a forced fumble, 11 tackles for loss, half a sack, forced fumble, pass defense, you name it. but that was with the Giants. And my concern with him was how could it get any better for the Green Bay Packers? And I wasn't expecting the tackles to fall so much. We went from 116 to 88. That's pretty bare. That's the only player really who's played, who's started all games, played close to 100% of snaps, and is less than 100 combined tackles on this list. Usually I don't even, rock with defensive backs who aren't getting me 100 or more tackles, but we can't discount the kind of player that Xavier McKinney was in 2023, and we saw glimpses of it in 2024. Now, if you're in tackle-heavy leagues, McKinney was probably on waivers most of the year, free agent, but at the same time, I will give some shout-outs here to big play scoring. Xavier McKinney would be higher on this list if I was basing it off big play scoring. Of course, did not have a 10 tackle or more game, none whatsoever. He did have 9 tackles in a game, so wasn't far off, but it wasn't consistent. You can see the average was only 5.2 tackles. That's not going to cut it. Sacks, he did have a sack, 2 tackles for loss, 8 interceptions is what we're here for. 11 pass defense is what we're here for. So again, big play scoring. He was only second in interceptions to Kirby Joseph. Not a lot of defensive backs, especially safeties, who are going to have more than 11 or 12 pass defense. So he was quite adequate in that role. Still had 6 out of 17 of those games were top 25 finishes. So it depends on how you see it here. Xavier McKinney, one stat I looked up about him is that he was actually in 2024 8th when it comes to defensive backs in coverage snaps with 654. To me, that's not a good sign. I don't really want to see my safety. I know he's a free safety, but sometimes this stat is misleading. Jesse Bates was actually 4th, had more coverage snaps, but of course Jesse Bates, we know, had over 100 tackles. But yeah, this top 8 in coverage snaps is not enticing to see. I think that's a big reason of why Xavier McKinney didn't get the tackles. I don't think that he's going to come back and hit 116 like he did 2023. That's not what we're expecting. But I do see a world where he can eclipse that 100 tackle mark. First off, Jair Alexander is out. A big factor in this, somebody who I was tempted to mention, the only cornerback I would have had on this list was, I can't bank on him. Mike Sanders still, I'll say, is my number 1 corner, but not far behind him, either 2 or 3 is going to be one of the most underrated players in Keyshawn Nixon. Keyshawn Nixon was playing in the slot last year. He had 87 tackles himself. And also, if you're in return yard leagues, you know about Keyshawn Nixon. But Keyshawn Nixon, had one less tackle than Xavier McKinney from a cornerback position. Maybe Keyshawn Nixon was taking away some tackle opportunities from Xavier McKinney. Now, Jair Alexander, again, is out of the question. So it looks like Keyshawn Nixon is going to be moved to the outside. We'll see how that changes for Keyshawn Nixon. I still expect him to be one of the upper echelon cornerbacks in IDP. But Xavier McKinney, don't give up on him just yet. We're getting some good news here with Jair Alexander's departure, plus the big 2023 season. I think Xavier McKinney can rebound to 100 tackles. And if he can get that 100 tackles and keep 6 or 7 interceptions, 10 or 12 pass defense, he's easily going to be somebody who provides value to you this late. So a lot of people are sleeping on him. I understand it. Evan Williams is also a second-year safety who, I like him perhaps more. I wasn't so bullish to put him in my top 24, but things could go south, things could go north. So Xavier McKinney, the jury's still out on him. Be excited to see what he does in 2025. Before we move on to number 21, really fun one here, I just wanted to mention right now we are doing a promo with Fast Draft. If you like doing best ball drafts, offense and IDP, as a matter of fact, check out Fast Draft. Go to the App Store, download it. You can get a deposit match up to $50 with the code PlusJohnny. Again, that's a deposit match. If you put in $25, you get in 25. You put in 10, you get 10 back. So why not just throw 50 in it and at least get a 50 back? You have $100 in your bank account, and go see who you can draft. There's big names drafted in here in these IDP and offensive best ball leagues. So quick draft, just like it says. It's a fast draft. Check it out if you like fast drafts and you like best ball. Okay, moving on to my next guy, one of my favorite guy I want to talk about on this list. I hope you stayed this long because it's worth it, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't put the age for these last couple, but that's all right. We know he's a young guy, second-year player, Demani Richardson. Demani Richardson, I know if you had him in your leagues, you're a true IDP head out there, and I respect your game because you were right. Demani Richardson, I don't know, a lot of hype on him so far this season. I haven't seen him so high in rankings, but I think he's somebody who's a little bit big time slept on, I should say. This is going to be one of my sleepers projected so far. Last season, here we go. I got an asterisk next to this. 14 games played, average of 3.6 tackles. I hope everyone else is looking at those stats and throwing it out because I'm not. I dug a little bit deeper into that. And when we look at Demani Richardson, again, stats will tell you 14 games played, 51 tackles, but that's not the case. He played 0% of defensive snaps in weeks 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 11, 12. That's 7 games right there. So basically, we went talking 14 games. We're -7. We're looking at 7 games played, and that was starting role for Demani Richardson. He played 7 games and was a starter for basically 7 games. And in those 7 games, 50 combined tackles. And actually, there was 2 games, week 14 and week 15. Week 14, he played 26% of snaps. Week 15, 16% of snaps. And even though those 2 games where he didn't even play a quarter of the snaps, he still had a combined 50 tackles in those 7 games. So bottom line, the 5 games that he played 95% or more, let's look at those. Those are more intriguing. 5 games, once again, where he played 95% or more snaps, he had 48 combined tackles. That's just under an average of 10. Incredulous. That's Buda Baker numbers. He also had an interception, tackle for loss, and 2 pass defense in those 5 games. 3 of his 5 games that he started, he had 10 or more tackles. So very juicy number there. That's, if you multiplied that by 3, and we'll say that happened 9 times in 15 games, probably would have said 10 or 11 times in a full season. Nobody touched that. I promise you, nobody touched that as far as defensive backs last season. I think he's a major upgrade over Jordan Fuller. Jordan Fuller is out. Xavier Woods is out, but they do replace him with Tre'Von Moehrig. And I know that, Demani Richardson plays that free safety position, which we, usually shy away from, but hey, Xavier Woods last year playing free safety was pretty darn good. So if he can kind of give us a Xavier Woods season, we'll be happy. But and I'm not sitting here saying that he's going to average 10 tackles a game and have 170 tackles. I don't think he's you can make a case for him to be in the top 12. You got to see the proof is in the pudding first. But the potential's there. I do think he has huge potential, and he's very overlooked right now. So this is going to be one of my favorite sleepers coming into the year. You'll hear me talk about him again for sure. And as far as job security goes, they brought in Tre'Von Moehrig. He's going to start alongside Demani Richardson. As of right now, he is a starter. But don't forget there's a rookie 4th rounder, Lathan Ransom, who's lurking, who I think is going to be a good player for the Panthers. Don't think he's going to take Richardson's job. Think Richardson at least gets the first crack. And I'm not even sure if Lathan is a free safety type of player. I'm not really too familiar with his game, but I will become in the next couple weeks. So here's to hoping Demani Richardson holds that starting spot and puts up 8 to 10 tackles a game. It would be huge value. Nobody's really looking his way right now. And as a matter of fact, one more thing about Demani Richardson, in those 5 games played, like we said, 3 out of the 5, those starting 5 games, 3 out of the 5 were double-digit tackle games. Hugely impressive. All 5 of them, he was of course, a weekly top 25 finisher. I don't think he's going to be 17 for 17 in that regard in a full season, but still promising nonetheless. Moving on to 22, Grant Delpit. Grant Delpit had a fine year, actually his career year in Cleveland, with 111 tackles. 68 of those were solos and 43 were assists. Nice clean average of 6.9 tackles per game. still missed a game too. So perhaps we could be looking at definitely 115, we'll say, but maybe even 120 tackles for Grant Delpit if he played that last game last season. 2 of those games were double-digit tackle games. That's fine. Checks the box. 7 tackles for loss, pretty high for a defensive back. He got a sack. He usually gets about a sack a season. Again, consistent player. Did not have an interception. A little bit surprising there. No forced fumbles and 1 pass defense. Was a weekly top 25 finisher 3 times. That's not what we're here for. We're here for our 10 to 12 points. Give me 6 or 7 tackles and maybe a pass defense, maybe a tackle for loss in there. And that's the kind of player you have with Grant Delpit. And having him at 22 is kind of maybe a disservice because some of these guys above, we don't know exactly who they are, what their role is, what they're going to do. But we do kind of know that with Grant Delpit. So you can make a case for him being higher in your rankings because he's dependable. And I respect that. Dependability is always important here, especially in the beginning of the season. Week 1, maybe not smart to throw Demani Richardson out there and start him with confidence. But Grant Delpit certainly can. So as long as he's healthy, I think Grant Delpit is definitely going to have a nice season. I don't know if he's going to be a back-to-back career years, but if he can match last year's production, and he's pretty consistent, we'll take it. So Grant Delpit, don't forget about him. 23, Xavier Woods. Xavier Woods had a tremendous season last year. Actually did not miss a snap, was number 1 as far as safeties in snaps and snap count. And availability is a pretty big, important part of IDP scoring to get points. So Xavier Woods, we've seen him do this before in 2021, I believe. Yeah, from Minnesota, he had 106 tackles. Then he kind of blew that out of the water this past year with 119. Had 2 tackles for loss, 3 interceptions, 6 pass defense. Was a top 25 finisher 6 out of 17 times. So just over a third there. Xavier Woods, this is somebody who's switching teams. He's going to Tennessee. Name me a good IDP defensive back that's been for Tennessee. Come on now, don't say Amani Hooker. But maybe we have to go back to like Michael Griffin. That was years ago at this point. Kind of scares me there, but hey, somebody's going to break the mold at some point in time. So maybe it's Xavier Woods. Again, signed to Tennessee. He's a good safety for IDP. I don't think he's a slam dunk. But he's going to start there. Xavier Wood, I'm sorry. What's the guy? Amani Hooker. Amani Hooker is always hurt. Of course, they bring in a rookie is named Kevin Winston Jr. out of Penn State. I think he's more of like the Amani Hooker replacement if things go south. We know that the vet that Xavier Woods is. I think Tennessee brought him in there to start and play a whole. Hopefully, they can get 100% of snaps out of him like the Panthers did last year. I don't think Winston Jr. is coming for his job, so that's pretty comforting to hear. If anything, that would be at the expense of Amani Hooker. And to throw that out there, Kevin Winston Jr. is absolutely a sleeper at this point. So I think Xavier Woods is a solid DB2 with upside. We saw him have huge games, double-digit tackle games last season, and he was a monster for the Carolina Panthers. But I do think he'll have a solid year, maybe take 10, 15 tackles off there. But even again, in his 2021 season, Minnesota, he had 106 tackles, very rosterable. So Xavier Woods, let's see if he can do it again for us, this time in Tennessee. And finally, I like talking about these Carolina safeties, whether it's Richardson, Xavier Woods, formerly, current. Well, here's the other Carolina safety. Tre'Von Moehrig makes the list here, rounds out the list at 24. Not really hugely high on him, but I can't discount what he did last year. 2024, he had 104 tackles. It's a nice clean average of 6.1. Good number there. We'll take an average of 6 or more tackles per game. Only had 1 out of 17 double-digit tackle games. So he's not a huge tackler, but is pretty consistent overall. If he can get you 5-6 tackles, it's not going to kill you, especially in deeper leagues. Did have 5 tackles for loss, a sack, 2 picks, 10 pass defense. So it wasn't all, just tackles. He was able to elevate his, roster ability, his value to us, not only from tackles, but splash plays as well. Did end the season 5 out of 17 games, is a top 25 finisher. So Tre'Von Moehrig, I do think that he has the potential. He's young enough. I think he's 26, 27 years old. We've obviously seen Xavier Woods at the free safety position have the free safety position. Tre'Von's probably going to play strong safety. But again, even Demani Richardson, when him and Woods were there last season, both of them were hitting. So I do think this is a defensive backfield where we can see some pretty good value from two safeties. And it could happen. At the same time, you look at the stats, look at 2023, right? 83 tackles, 3 picks, 2 sacks, which is nice. The splash plays were there, but only 83 tackles. Did have 8 passes defense too in that season. Tre'Von Moehrig, bottom line is he could repeat his 2023 season. That was bad. But change of scenery and young defensive backs also don't bode well for him. He's got Demani Richardson there. He's got the rookie Lathan there. So other guys are lurking. Maybe this was just a one-off in Vegas and he had a nice season. Obviously, the track record doesn't bode well for him either. Did not eclipse 100 tackles in any of those first 2 or 3 years. I believe 3 years. So it'd be interesting to see what happens for Moehrig. I do think that, we have to give him his flowers and put him in this top 24, but I would not be surprised actually if he falls out of this list and isn't what we thought he was for IDP. So that was my only gripe with Tre'Von Moehrig is let me see more of it before I really go in. But he does have the splash play and tackle potential to do some damage and be valuable there. So a sneaky guy rounding out the list at 24. So before I get off, I just wanted to mention, if you're interested in going to the Fantasy Football Expo, now is your time to get the tickets at the fantasyfootballexpo.com. It's this August. This year it's August the 8th through the 10th in Canton, Ohio. And check out the new fan packages, and you can join us and other well-known content creators at the NFL, Hall of Fame, and Village. And finally, speaking about the Expo, check out Bob Lung's Fantasy Football Consistency Guide. Get a leg up on your opponents with Bob's 10th annual edition of the Fantasy Football Consistency Guide for 2025. Purchase yours for just $15. So big shout out to Bob Lung there. Does a nice job with the Expo every year. I went last year. Looking to go back this year. So hopefully you see me there. Until next time, I appreciate you rocking with me. Thank you for being a viewer and listener, and keep eyes open for the next video.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.